While many Americans focused on things happening in Washington, D.C., as we try to sort out who the next Speaker of the House will be, events unfolded and continue to unfold in such a way that it pushes the United States and other nations toward another world war. Lest you think I'm over dramatizing the situation, the current President of the United States, Joe Biden, is en route to the Middle East right now to try to get answers and hopefully bring about a diplomatic solution. So strap in, folks. This one's going to be really good. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. Events in the Gaza Strip and in the nation of Israel continue to unfold in such a way that one thing is leading to another, and I have a very grave and bad feeling that it's heading toward a war of unintended consequences and unknown ending. Let's take a look at some of the headlines that we're reading about and see how, as the old song goes, one thing leads to another. We'll start with the Associated Press. Headline: After blast kills hundreds at Gaza hospital, Hamas and Israel trade blame as rage spreads in region. Article written by Najib Jobain, Samia Kulab, Ravi Nesman, and Matthew Lee. A massive blast rocked a Gaza City hospital packed with wounded and other Palestinians seeking shelter Tuesday, killing hundreds of people, the Hamas-run health ministry said. Hamas blamed an Israeli airstrike, while the Israeli military blamed a rocket misfired by other Palestinian militants. At least 500 people were killed, the ministry said. Now, that's Hamas's side of it. Give you an idea of what Israel is saying, take a look at this. This is from Breitbart. From the Israeli Defense Forces, Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket misfire caused hospital explosion. Article written by Joel Pollack. The Iranian-backed Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror organization was responsible for an explosion at the Ali Baptist Hospital in Gaza City due to a misfired rocket intended to kill Israeli civilians, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. The explosion, which reportedly killed hundreds of people, sparked outrage, with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas pulling out of a meeting Wednesday with U.S. President Joe Biden over the issue. Biden has backed Israel's war of self-defense against Hamas terror group, which rules Gaza and killed over 1,400 Israelis in a massive terror attack on October 7th. Okay. Like I said a moment ago, one thing tends to lead to another. The President of the United States made the decision, perhaps on his own, perhaps on the advice of his counselors, to travel to the Middle East. This itinerary before he left Washington, D.C., was that he would meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and then travel to a summit in Amman, Jordan, to meet with other Arab leaders to see if he could use diplomatic efforts to try to bring calm and hopefully a ceasefire to the region. Well, this event at the hospital in Gaza City is absolutely spilling over into other areas. Take a look at this, folks. Headline from Reuters. Jordan cancels summit with Biden, Sisi, and Abbas in Amman. By Suleiman Al-Khalidi, we read the following. Jordan has canceled a summit it was to host in Amman on Wednesday with U.S. President Joe Biden and the Egyptian and Palestinian leaders to discuss Gaza, Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi said. Safadi said the meeting would be held at a time when the parties could agree to, quote, end the war and the massacres against Palestinians, blaming Israel with its military campaign for pushing the region to the brink of the abyss. Biden was expected to make a whirlwind trip to Israel, where he would later head to Jordan and, according to Jordanian officials, meet with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Jordan's King Abdullah would have hosted the four-way summit, which would have on its agenda the need to get humanitarian assistance to Gaza and to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe and tamp down the conflict with Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this headline doesn't say it directly, but I'd like to interpret some of what has just been said here. With all due respect to the office of the President of the United States, do you realize what leaders in the Arab world just did? They basically told the President of the United States, supposedly the leader of the free world, they just told him to go fly a kite. From what I understand from reading stories from the New York Times and other places, Biden was already on Air Force One and the plane was on the tarmac when they got the news that the Jordanians basically said, go pound sand. They don't want Biden to show up for this thing, or at least until he's ready to denounce what Israel has done and back them up and say, hey, we want an end to this on Palestinian terms, which I don't think Biden's in the inclination to give, but regardless, the office of the President of the United States has just been disrespected by leaders in the Arab world. With all due respect to the current occupant of the White House, and for the record, this is not necessarily a statement about him, could you imagine any other president of the United States being treated in such a shabby and undiplomatic manner? Yet for some reason, the Arab world has little to no respect for the current occupant of the White House. Just saying. Now, other things were happening aside from a cancellation of a summit and a rocket attack gone wrong on a Gaza hospital. Folks, take a look at this, and this is the one that truly gives me pause and causes me to be frightened. This is from the New York Times. Take a look at this. Hundreds waving Palestinian flags swarm U.S. Embassy in Beirut ahead of Biden's visit to Israel. Article by Catherine Dunleavy. We read the following. Hundreds of Lebanese protesters, including some waving Palestinian flags, swarmed the U.S. Embassy in Beirut Tuesday evening in response to the massive blast at a Gaza City hospital that reportedly killed hundreds of people. Police had to deploy tear gas to disperse the demonstrators who gathered outside the embassy hours ahead of President Biden's arrival in neighboring Israel to show support for the Jewish state in its conflict with the terrorist group Hamas. One protester was seen on video posted to social media scaling a barbed wire fence surrounding the building in order to plant a Palestinian flag on the embassy's flagpole as fellow ralliers cheered him on from below. Folks, I mentioned this in the previous video, but I'll bring it back up again. I'm just old enough and young enough to remember the Iranian hostage crisis in 1979. How all that started was a group of protesters stormed the American embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage for over 400 days. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here, but tensions keep escalating and escalating and escalating, and something bad is going to happen. Not just to Israelis, not just to Palestinians, but to Americans. And when I read reports like the one I just did from the New York Post, my mind harkens back to a very bad time in America, and more I'm getting the distinct impression we're about to repeat everything that happened in that awful period of the late 1970s. To give you an idea of some of the images that came from what happened today outside the embassy in Lebanon, this comes from the Twitter page of Benny Johnson, good guy by the way. The pictures that he posted come from Getty Images. Take a look at these. These are from just outside the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. You can see the fire in the background. I'm telling you, folks, this is headed for bad, bad times. Now, the president is trying to use the carrot of diplomacy, but we're also apparently preparing the stick. Take a look at this headline from CNN. U.S. Marine Rapid Response Force moving toward Israel as Pentagon strengthens military posture in region. Article by Natasha Bertrand and Oren Lieberman. We read the following. A U.S. Marine Rapid Response Force is headed to the waters off the coast of Israel, and the Pentagon is preparing American troops for a potential deployment to the country, escalating the U.S. show of force in the region as it works to prevent the conflict between Israel and Hamas from widening any further. Two defense officials familiar with the situation said the Rapid Response Force, consisting of 2,000 Marines and sailors, is being sent. It will join a growing number of U.S. warships and forces converging on Israel as the U.S. seeks to send a message of deterrence to Iran and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. On Sunday evening, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered that roughly 2,000 troops prepare for a potential deployment to Israel to help with tasks like medical and logistical support, multiple defense officials said. So we've already got the Gerald R. Ford carrier group already in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Dwight Eisenhower carrier group steamed out of Norfolk last weekend and is headed toward the Mediterranean as well. Now we've got 2,000 Marines prepared to potentially land on the shores of Israel. Folks, this is getting to be truly and truly scary, but lest you think that it can't get any worse, one last headline for you. Take a look at this. This is from Bloomberg. Biden plans to ask Congress for $100 billion in Ukraine and Israeli aid. Package aims to leverage support for Israel after Hamas attack. Size and scope of Biden's potential request remains fluid. Article by Jennifer Jacobs, Roxana Tiran, and Zach Cohen. President Joe Biden is considering a supplemental request of approximately $100 billion that would include defense assistance for Israel and Ukraine, alongside border security funding and aid to nations in the Indo-Pacific, including Taiwan, according to people familiar with the matter. Biden has pledged support for Israel in the wake of the deadly attack earlier this month by Hamas, a group designated by the U.S. and EU as a terror organization. Aid for Israel enjoys broad bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress. Assistance for Ukraine, however, has struggled to earn the favor of House Republicans. A group of lawmakers supportive of additional aid for Kiev earlier this month proposed that the administration pursue a joint aid package for Israel and Ukraine in hopes of overcoming Republican opposition. We're getting ready to pay for a war. We're getting ready to try and pay for an ongoing war in Eastern Europe. We've got troops ready to land on the shores of Israel. We have two different naval carrier groups going around in the Mediterranean. We've got the Middle East looking at the American president saying, buzz off. And meanwhile, the death toll on both sides continues to rise. Our embassy is being openly attacked. To say that any of this is not good would be a gross understatement. Folks, I don't know what's going to happen in the days ahead, but I will say this. If you pray, now's the time to start doing it. Pray for leaders to have wisdom. Pray for there to be de-escalation. And pray for peace. But that's what I've got to say about it all. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear what you think about all this. Number three, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new material is coming out. Number four, please share the video around. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.